Good morning, this is Larry with another parable. Today's parable is entitled Night of the Chagas Bug. I turned over on my mattress, touched something stringy, and was so startled that I nearly kicked off my mosquito netting. The source of my panic turned out to be nothing more than a tangle of thread, thinly connected to my torn mattress. I sighed and laid back down again, wondering if this night of the Chagas bug was ever going to end. Chagas bugs. From what I heard, they were cone-nosed, a green and black metallic color, and looked like typical beetles. But there was at least one big difference between them and typical beetles. This difference scared me half to death. If a person should be infected by a Chagas bug, he or she might have a heart attack anytime in the next 5 to 10 years. In some cases, death is even more immediate. Chagas bugs are found in rural Brazil, so I had to ask myself at least the 10th time, why was I spending the night in a house in rural Brazil? What was I trying to prove? I was trying to prove that I cared for people, poor people in Brazil. That's what. You see, my dad's a missionary. He often leaves our home in the city to help teach small gatherings of Christians in the sitios, or rural villages. Sometimes he stays weeks at a time, sleeping and eating with these people who have nothing compared to us. But as he always says, if Jesus were in Brazil, he would probably live with the poor. So when Dad got ready to go to this latest trip, I decided the least I could do was spend one night with a poor rural family, the De Silvas. But I guess I didn't realize how terrified I was of the Chagas bug. I moved into my side and gazed through the thick Brazilian dark. Even during the night, the humidity seemed to drip like a melting stick of butter. I heard Mr. De Silva mumble something through the darkness. He was talking in his sleep again and shifting in his hammock. How could Mr. De Silva have the nerve to sleep without a mosquito netting? Didn't he care whether a Chagas bug crawled across his arm? He knew about Chagas bugs. Surely he knew these little monsters were the cause of death for thousands of Brazilians every year. Surely. I decided it would be wise to shift my thoughts to something else, such as how to get comfortable on my tiny moldy mattress. But once again, my mind returned to the Chagas bugs and how they could infect your eyes, mouth, and open cuts, even the slightest scratches. I drew my right arm from under my body and felt for the cuts along my elbow. Why did Dad have to choose this house of all houses to stay in? It was a mud hut, and Chagas bugs are known to breed in the cracks of mud walls. With vampire-like habits, they sleep by day and come out at night to snatch a blood meal from the nearest available mammal, from mammals such as humans. Sometimes I wish that, oh no! Flooded with fear, I jumped from my feet and busted through the mosquito netting and began beating at my pant leg. Something small had scurried up my leg, and for all I knew, it had been headed right for my eyes. Something wrong, Quinn? My dad asked sleepily through the dark. Mr. De Silva also had been awakened, and he was promptly lighting a candle. Baratas, Mr. De Silva said, holding the candle close to the floor. His statement didn't need to be translated, for a half dozen cockroaches were scurrying into the corners. Away from the light, I smiled embarrassingly at my outburst, but not totally convinced that it had been a cockroach and not a Chagas bug. that had crawled up my leg. "Are you all right?" Dad asked, sitting up. Surrounded by mosquito netting, he looked like he was draped in cobwebs. "I'm fine, just fine," I said shakily, slipping back onto the mattress. "Okay then, good night," came my dad's groggy voice, followed by a buona notte from Mr. De Silva. Although the commotion had settled, the noises of night seemed to rise steadily in my mind. The chirping and buzzing of bugs mingled with sounds I couldn't identify. That's when I heard a slight shuffling noise, and I shifted onto my side to see what was going on. The last thing I needed was a visitor from rats. The hammock across the room was empty and swinging, and Mr. De Silva was on the floor, kneeling. What in the world was he praying about at this hour? I watched and wondered for the longest time, expecting Mr. De Silva to climb back into his hammock at any moment. But he kept on praying. Sometimes he spoke out loud, but even then I could hear what he was praying, except for one word, which suddenly jumped out at me clear and sharp. The word was Quinn. He was praying for me. Was Mr. De Silva planning to give up a night's sleep just to pray for me and my fears? It was certainly possible. Mr. De Silva had found out about my fears today when we got into a conversation about Chagas bugs and sharks. I don't mind certain dangers as long as I can see them head on and in broad daylight. But Chagas bugs are unseen, sneaky, and quick, just like sharks. Every time our family goes to the ocean, I'm afraid a shark will come at me unseen. However, Mr. De Silva had suggested that if I was going to think about things that are unseen, I should concentrate on the unseen helpers at my side, the angels, for example. Maybe he was praying right now that God would send a regiment of angels to swoop down on his house and stomp on any attacking Chagas bugs. Sensing the growing protection from Mr. De Silva's prayers, my eyes focused on his shadow figure across the room, and I smiled. It's funny. By spending the night in this house, I had assumed that I was the one who was reaching out to people in need. Here, Mr. De Silva was the one reaching out to me. Slowly, my smile expanded until it merged into a yawn. And then, as the bats above began to settle down, and I heard the faint, almost alien crow of a rooster in the distance, I gradually, unexpectedly, fell asleep. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this story. Have a great day, and God bless.